All right, let's dive into a chapter of American history that's, well, it's probably the most defining and devastating one, the Civil War. This wasn't just some conflict over territory. It literally ripped the country in two, pitted brother against brother, and completely changed the idea of what it means to be American. So, we're going to break down how this incredibly brutal war even started, and, why we're still feeling its effects today. Just look at this number, 700,000. Let that sink in for a second. That's how many soldiers are thought to have died in this war, and we're talking about deaths from everything, combat, disease, you name it. To put that into perspective, and this is wild, that's more American lives lost than in World War I, World War II, Korea, and Vietnam combined. There's just no contest. It is the deadliest war in American history, period. So that just leads to the big question, right? How on earth did it get to this point? How did the United States literally turn on itself with such just unbelievable violence? Well, the fuse was lit a long, long time before the first cannon fired. Okay, first up, a nation divided. Because to really get the war, you've got to understand that America wasn't really one country back then. It was more like two completely different worlds trying to share the same flag. And they were split on pretty much everything that mattered. I mean, look at this breakdown. It's like night and day. Up north, you had this booming industrial economy, factories, cities, people working for wages. And a really powerful abolitionist movement was gaining steam, saying slavery was just plain wrong. But then you look at the South. Its entire economy, its whole way of life, was built on an agricultural system that depended completely on the labor of enslaved people. So yeah, these weren't just two regions with different opinions. They were two societies on a collision course. Something had to give. And, we don't have to guess why the South decided to leave the Union. They told us. They were incredibly clear about it. Just listen to this, directly from Mississippi's Declaration of Secession. Our position is thoroughly identified with the institution of slavery, the greatest material interest of the world. So yeah, while people talk about other issues, the states themselves put preserving slavery front and center as the main reason for it all. All right, so how did all this tension finally explode? That brings us to how the war actually erupted. Because believe me, things went from bad to worse really, really fast. The political arguments were over, and the country was about to be plunged into war. So what was the final spark? It was Abraham Lincoln's election in November of 1860. The South saw him as a major threat because he was against slavery expanding into new territories, and they didn't wait around. The very next month, South Carolina was out. 6 other states followed pretty quickly. Then, in April 1861, Confederate troops fired on Fort Sumter. That was it. The war was on. Lincoln called for troops to put down the rebellion, and that pushed 4 more states to secede. The dominoes just fell one after another. Now, if you were a betting person back then and you just looked at the stats, you would have put all your money on the Union. And it wouldn't even be close. They had way more people, way more railroads, and they controlled almost all of the country's manufacturing. But, wars aren't fought on paper. The Confederacy had a huge advantage. They were fighting on their own land, a defensive war. And their soldiers were fighting for a cause they deeply believed in, defending their homes. And at the very beginning, everybody was fired up. Patriotism was through the roof, on both sides. Young men were lining up to volunteer, thinking it was all going to be a quick, heroic adventure. Home by Christmas. Oh man, they had no idea what was coming. Right, so that early excitement, it didn't last. It was quickly replaced by the horrifying reality of a long, bloody, grinding war. So the question is, how did the Union actually win? Despite some serious setbacks early on, they managed to pull it off. Let's look at how the war was won. One of the absolute game changers was the Emancipation Proclamation. Now, this was a masterstroke by Lincoln. It wasn't just about doing the right thing, though it was that too. It was an incredible piece of military strategy. It completely changed what the war was about. Now it was a fight for freedom. This made it pretty much impossible for countries like Great Britain to side with the slaveholding Confederacy. And, just as importantly, it opened the door for black men to join the Union Army. We're talking about almost 200,000 fresh troops who were more than ready to fight for their own freedom. If you had to pick one year that decided the whole thing, it would be 1863. I mean, look at this. In July, 2 huge things happened basically at the same time. Over in the east, you have the Battle of Gettysburg, a brutal, bloody fight that stopped Robert E. Lee's big push into the north once and for all. Meanwhile, out west, Vicksburg falls to the Union. This was huge. It meant the Union controlled the entire Mississippi River, which literally sliced the Confederacy in 2. After July 1863, the tide had turned for good. Okay, so with the momentum on their side, the Union leadership, especially generals like Grant and Sherman, they adopted a new and frankly brutal strategy. It's called total war. The idea was, we're not just fighting their armies anymore. We are going to destroy their ability and their will to keep fighting. That means wrecking their railroads, burning their farms, crippling their entire economy. And the most famous, or maybe infamous example of this, that would be General Sherman's March to the Sea. His army basically cut a 60-mile-wide scar of destruction all the way across Georgia. It was ruthless, it was devastating, and it was designed to do one thing: completely break the spirit of the Confederacy. By the spring of 1865, it was pretty much over. The Confederate army was shattered, their capital city, Richmond, had fallen, and General Lee was completely surrounded. On April 9th, he surrendered to General Ulysses S. Grant. And with that, the war was effectively over. So the guns fell silent. But the story doesn't end there. In a lot of ways, it was just beginning. Now the country had to face the absolutely staggering cost of it all and figure out what to do with a legacy that would change America forever. This quote from historian James McPherson really brings it all home. He says the war's cost in American lives was as great as in all of the nation's other wars combined through the Vietnam. Just think about that. It was a level of loss that touched almost every single family in the country, leaving scars that honestly are still healing today. So after all that bloodshed and sacrifice, what actually changed? Well, there are three huge takeaways. Number one, the Union was saved. The idea that a state could just leave was defeated for good. Number two, slavery was abolished. The 13th Amendment made it official, nationwide. And number three, the nation began this messy, complicated, and incredibly important era called Reconstruction, trying to rebuild the South and figure out how to bring 4 million newly freed people into the fabric of American life. So in the end, the war settled two massive questions, right? It decided that the country would stay together and that it would not be a slave nation. But in doing that, it opened up a whole new can of worms, new questions about what equality really means, what justice looks like, and what the true definition of freedom is. And those are questions we are very much still grappling with today.